You know what humus is? It means dirt. It means dust. In other words, humility means that you recognize that you are dust. And what are we composed of? What did God create us of? He created us of dust. In other words, when we come to worship before God, we realize that we are but dust. But of course, in the sight of God, we are very precious dust. We must come to worship God in humility, in other words, not with a haughty spirit. Psalm 9 and verse 20 explains the importance of recognizing that we are not God, that we are simply men. It says there, put them in fear, O Lord, that the nations may know themselves to be but men. See, when we have the fear of the Lord, what do we realize? We realize that we are but what? We are but men. In other words, the fear of the Lord creates humility in us. Notice Isaiah 45 and verse 9. Isaiah 45 and verse 9. Woe to him who strives with his maker. Let the potsherd strive with the potsherds of the earth. Shall the clay say to him who forms it, what are you making? Or shall your handiwork say, he has no hands? You remember the story of Nebuchadnezzar, right? That great king of Babylon. He thought he was hot stuff. In fact, the Bible tells us that one day he went out on the balcony of the palace and he says, isn't this great Babylon that I have built with my power and for my glory? And the Lord said, oh yeah? And in an instant, God removed the pearl of reasoning from his mind. And suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar was no better than a beast. He was something as long as God gave him a reasoning power. When God removed that, he was nothing. And at the end, Nebuchadnezzar says, I now praise and honor the God of heaven because he is able to humble those who have a haughty spirit. So the fear of the Lord entails great humility. The Bible also says that fearing God entails a spirit of trust in God. It means to trust in him. Notice Psalm 115 and verse 11. Psalm 115 and verse 11. It says, you who fear the Lord, trust in the Lord. See, those who fear the Lord, they trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. But of course the question is, what does it mean to trust in the Lord? By far, folks, the most predominant connotation of the expression fear of the Lord or fear God in Scripture has to do with a response of willing obedience to God. You know, my colleague here at Fresno Central Church, Elder James Finn, many times has said that obedience is what? Obedience is the highest form of worship. It's also the highest form of fearing the Lord. You say, how is this? We're going to notice now several verses in Scripture that show that fearing God leads to a change in our lifestyle. It leads to loving obedience to God's commandments. It leads us to do what God says that we're supposed to do. For example, you remember when Abraham got to the city of Gerar, the king there was Abimelech. And Abraham was afraid that Abimelech was going to kill him and take his wife, Sarah, because it appears that Sarah was pretty good looking. Even though at that time she was up in years, but she was still pretty good looking. And notice what Abraham said, the justification for lying and saying, no, she's my sister. He didn't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. He told a partial truth with the intent to deceive. Notice Genesis 20 and verse 11.